Hello. How art thou? Let me just check my audio setup. Yes. Sweet. Hi, guys. How are you? Lemon, you want to be a part of this? Come here. Come here, Bubba. Yes. Oh, yes. The internet would like to see you. This is Lemon. He's here for the live. He's a little ham sandwich. Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Just having a cozy Q&A today. Just chatting all things Enneagram. Go ahead and throw your questions in the chat. But first, I want to know what your name is. Introduce yourself. Why are you here? Where do you live? If you know your type, what's your type? I'm doing good. Yes, he's the cutest bub in the world. This has been like the most anxiety-ridden week for me, so I'm looking forward to the weekend. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not at my best self. Yes? He's circling my chair, hurting dog problems. Yeah, I'm not feeling my best, but not also feeling my worst. I'm just kind of in the middle. Yeah, I would like to know how you guys are. What's your type? Drop it in the chat. I wanted to talk about wings today, just as general. We can talk about other things, but I thought maybe we could go over wings just because I recently had a wing workshop, and so it's on my mind. Roxy says she's a type 6 and have a dog named R2. That's so cute. Yes, Lemon is the cutest. Is he named R2 after R2D2? Hi, Derek from Louisiana. Let's see. We've got Cutthroat Beast. What type are you? Pris, Paul, Rex, Samba wants to know how to know your Enneagram type and wings or main wing. It's a big question. So finding your Enneagram type is different from finding your wing, obviously. The most important part of finding, knowing yourself better, knowing your personality better, is knowing what your Enneagram type is. I actually have a free typing workshop. I have a free typing guide that I can link in the chat, and it just tells you kind of what steps I recommend, gives you a little overview of the 9 types. I'll just put it in here. That's the link to my typing guide, but I really recommend that you read a book about all 9 types. Taking online tests is awesome, but it's not the best way to find your main type. I usually use it as just kind of a way to narrow down which types you're not, and then learn more about the core motivations. The Enneagram's all about why you do the things that you do, right? So learning what your core desire is, what's your core fear, what's your core weakness, the thing that you really struggle with. When you figure those out, then you are on a way more clear path to discovering your main type. Hi, Paul from Vancouver. Hi, Danny. If you guys have any questions, pop them in the chat. Yes, this is how to find your Enneagram type. I can go through how to find your wing if you guys are interested in that. Let's see. Hi, Josabad. How to find your wing. Let's show this. Sweet. So essentially, if you know your Enneagram type, you know your wing. Your wings are your 2 neighbor numbers on your side on the Enneagram symbol. So for example, if you're an Enneagram 3, you know your 2 wings are 2 and 4. Those are your neighbor wing numbers. I like to think about wings like you're flying. It's like literally your wings. If you have one wing, you're going to be flying lopsided, right? So you need it, and you use both of those wings to spice up your personality to help you get through each day. Rex says the harmonic triad is my favorite way to narrow down types. Yes, looking into triads is my favorite way to figure out main types. In fact, I have a workshop about finding your type on my website right here. So you how do I get rid of that? Okay. You can find your type. It basically is a 2.5 hour workshop with me, like a recording of it. And then it comes with a guide and resources for you. Arslan said, I've been binging your Enneagram videos and they're hilarious. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying them. I just filmed 2 yesterday, so I'm excited to get to editing them. Yes. Okay, so back to wings, shall we? All right, so your wings are the 2 neighbor numbers on your side. If you're a 3, that's your neighbor numbers are 4 or 2. It's written like your main number, it goes first, the 9, and then a little W, and then your dominant wing, or the wing you find yourself relying more often. That's how you'll see it written around the internet. And you want to think of these wings as like a flavoring of your personality. So think of it like salt and pepper, or like different hues that you use in a painting. The most important thing is why you do the things that you do. That is your main type, right? Wings are a flavoring. They add spice to your main Enneagram type, and they give you a more well-rounded picture of your personality. Yes. So when you are looking to find your wings, you first need to know your main Enneagram type. And then you need to understand that most people rely more heavily on one than the other. I have that little Tower of Pisa there to like recognize, like sometimes we lean more heavily on one than the other, but that doesn't mean we don't have access to the strengths and weaknesses of both of our wings. Yeah. If you guys have any questions or things you want to go over, just let me know. Hi, Avi. Avi says, hi, everyone. I'm a 4-wing 3, not a 2-wing 3. I really struggled with finding my type, but coping style helped me. I'm a reactor, not a positive outlook. If you want to go into coping styles and all that, I have videos on YouTube about that. I also cover the triads really heavily in my Find Your Type workshop online, which I can also link in the chat. This goes over the triads pretty well in the training. Paul says, thanks for sharing how you're feeling. I'm not at my best either. Yeah, not today. This whole week has been I'm not like unhappy, like nothing bad happened. I just feel really on edge, like really anxious about a lot of things. Like I literally went to the grocery store yesterday and I was like feeling so sharp and freaked out. I don't know, I'm just doing like normal tasks. So I'm looking forward to feeling more refreshed and just having more life in me, shall I say. If you guys have any questions about the Enneagram, pop them in the chat. Anything you want to cover. Yes, I hope you have brought your cozy beverage. I've got my 3rd iced coffee of the day. A little too much coffee today. Probably why I'm feeling so anxious. Does that mean I'm stopping? No. But yes, would love to hear your questions. We can talk about wings. We can talk about stress paths and growth paths. We can talk about anything your heart desires, your personality, interested heart desires. My Be Real just went off. Lemon Drop. He's doing good. Do you guys want to be in my Be Real? Let's take this. Yay. Lemon's good. Let me find him because I hear him sniffing under the door. Lemon. He's good. He ran from me. This is Lemon. He's the best dog in the world. Kathy says, I loved your example of the plant shop. Yeah, we can talk about that too. That's coping styles. Like, what do you do when you don't get what you want? So if you walk into a plant store and you really want this beautiful pothos plant, what do you do if the store owner's like, I'm not going to sell that to you? You could either react withdrawn, you could react aggressively, push back against that, or you could be dutiful, try to meet the responsibilities that everyone else has for you. Yeah, he got so big. He's 21 pounds and just in his teenage years right now, he's 8 months, almost 9 months. Paul says, when you perform your comedic skits, which is your favorite type to portray? I think I like 5 and 3, 4. It kind of depends on like what I've written too. Sometimes I find that I'm like, oh, this is way fun. This one section is funnier than the others that I've written. So I enjoy if like it's more well written. I'm like, okay, yeah, I like this better. But I like 4s. Like I've been filming all my 4 videos with a shawl on, which I'm just a shawl girl now. The plant shop was a good clue for me too. I usually withdraw because I assume I'll be misunderstood. Yeah, it's a great way to figure out what, it's a great way to narrow down which of the 9 types you are not. So if you know that if you go in a plant shop, the plant guy says, no, you can't have this pothos. You don't look like a plant person. You don't deserve to have this. And you go, oh, you're probably right. You know more than me. And then you just like kind of put your head down and shuffle out of the store. That means you're in the withdrawn triad. So you're going to be a type. Withdrawn is type 5, 9, and 4. So you'll know if you were withdrawn. The aggressive style is 3, 7, and 8. And then the dutiful style is 1, 2, and 6. Hello, Rusty Helm. Kathy, she didn't get it because I would withdraw, but that's because I'm not good with plants. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a plant store. I enjoy going into plant stores. Think of like a hobby. If you're like really into gaming or really into cooking or whatever it may be, how would you react if someone told you you can't get what you want? What is your first reaction? Do you push against it? Do you run away from it, or do you kind of say, yes, you are right. I will do whatever you want to fulfill the expectations you have of me. If you're new here, thanks for being here. We're just having a little cozy Q&A. I wasn't able to get a video up this week, so I thought we just have a little chat. And yeah, have any questions or thoughts or feelings about the world? It is Friday. What's everyone doing for the weekend? I would like to know. I'm going to work all weekend. I probably shouldn't. I probably should go on a hike or something and do something for my brain. I will. I'll go on a hike, but I do have to work most of the weekend. Avi says, can you explain stress and growth paths? I'm a 4 who goes to a 2 in stress and a 1 in health, but I've heard I can go to a 1 in stress and a 2 in health. Is that true? Yeah, let me go to my 4 slide and pull that up. Hang on one second. Okay. So these are my little guide sheets that I make for like workshops and stuff like that. Stress paths are the lines in the Enneagram symbol that are like in between. So it's what connects you to the numbers in between the types. So your wings are your neighbor numbers. That's on the outside of the circle. inside the circle is where you go in stress and where you go in growth. So your stress path when you're a 4, you can see these little yellow, sorry, it's so like, wait, can I zoom in here? No, okay, I can't. It's quite small, but basically when you see the Enneagram symbol here, the type 4 goes to the average to unhealthy traits of a type 2. They move along that yellow arrow when they're stressed out, when they're not doing well, and when they're healthy, grooving along, going to therapy, learning from their mistakes, they're going to go along their growth path to the healthy side of a type 1. So if you have any questions about growth paths, stress paths, I really need to do a more in-depth video about it, because I feel like it's such an important part of like, why do you even use the Enneagram to grow, right? Like how do you do it? And it's paying attention to your warning signs, like driving on that road and like you feel those little like bumps, the little rumble strips that tell you like, you're veering off lane. Knowing your stress paths, knowing your growth paths, knowing your blind spot paths, all of that helps you know, you're veering off lane. You need to get back on track. Roxy's going to do Frisbee with R2. Amazing. So if you are looking for which type you are, and you like you need another framework, I recommend looking at the coping styles. Are you dutiful? Are you withdrawn? Or are you aggressive? What do you do? What are your reactions when you are trying to get what you want and you're being told no? If you're new here, ask any questions you want. Just a little cozy Q&A. Woohoo. Ooh, Kathy, I forgot this weekend's Father's Day. Kathy says taking hubby out for steak for Father's Day. That's a great idea. Good idea. Love it. Yeah, for Father's Day, we actually did it like 2 weeks early. We took my dad to a Cubs Angels game, which was awesome because he's from Chicago. Their Beast says, mine would be aggressive, little triple assertive style. So you are either a 3, an 8, or a 7. What's your type, Cutthroat? I'm interested to know. I think the stress and growth paths are a big part for me too. I have a tendency to feel the healthy and unhealthy types of the 9, 6, and 3. Yeah, and those 3 numbers are all connected together on the Enneagram symbol. So you get quite familiar with the numbers that you're connected to in your stress and growth paths. Avi asks, which Enneagram type is the most engaged with your content and the least engaged? Just curious. It depends on, I really only have metrics for that in Instagram stories because I often ask like, hey, what's your type? And answer this question for me. And I get a lot of 6s and 9s answer that. 2s, the least amount of numbers I see in my Instagram story replies are 3s, 7s, and 5s sometimes, 8 sometimes. So it just kind of depends. I don't see a lot of 3s, which just saddens me because I'm a 3. I like to hear from other 3s. Lemon is, I don't know where he is, but he is a corgi. Oh, Avi answered, yes, Lemon is a corgi. Rex says, the 9s always show up because we're at home binging. The 9s they show up in great numbers. And honestly, my most viewed YouTube video is about 9. So I think maybe 9s are the most engaged. Least engaged, I would say 7s. And if I'm just generalizing, I obviously don't have data on it, but because I feel like 7s don't necessarily want to be pinned down or put in a box, or maybe they're not just super interested in personality types. I don't know. Lemon. If you're new here, welcome. It's having a casual Friday Q&A. I'm wearing my butterfly shirt. I got it at Goodwill. It's from Forever 21. I'm 32. Yeah, I just like butterflies, okay? Anyway, if you guys are new here, drop questions in. If you have any questions about wings, the Enneagram, let me know. Rusty says, for the 9, I like to chill for hours just listening to music or watching YouTube, but I also tend to be the most understanding and empathetic in my group. Spending time in 9 world during stress helped me learn how to rest. I'm a 3. Oh, looking at going towards your 9 in your 3 and going to the healthy parts of the 9 is game changer for 3s, like how to be present, how to actually rest, how to do a hobby without trying to monetize it. All of that can be incredibly healing for type 3s. Absolutely. If you have questions about certain types and their wing pairings, we can go into that. If you're a 4 and you are confused about your wing pairings, we can talk about that. Avi asked, how to get your family members to type themselves. I'm trying but failing miserably, and I want to know how to interact with them so they'll understand me. Unfortunately, you can't make anybody type themselves. They have to be interested in it. It's like, this is a very drastic example, but it's like sobriety. Like if someone wants to get sober, they have to want to get sober. If someone wants to learn about their personality type, they have to do it themselves because you know yourself best. Really, it was a lot of like talking to them about it and like getting books for people and just like being just very interested in their type if they were interested in it as well. Well, hello, Penny says 7s are too busy out having fun and new experiences. I agree. I think 7s are the least engaged online because they are they're not online. They're off doing things or going down a rabbit hole with their own interests. Sapphire asks, any tips on how to type someone? I don't recommend actually typing other people just because, like I said, we know ourselves best. We could all want a clean house, but the reason that we want a clean house is different. I'm going to take you through what I feel is the most important part of the Enneagram, which is what sets it apart from other typing systems like MBTI or Strengths Finder. And that's because it asks the question, why do you do the things that you do? It doesn't ask, what are the things that you do? It asks why. So we could all want a clean home, but the reason is different. So this looks at the core 4, the Enneagram does. It looks at your core fear, which is what you're running away from. It looks at your core desire, which is if you get this thing, what you're running towards. If I get this thing, I will finally be fulfilled. And then it looks at your core weakness, which is the main thing that you're struggling with. And this too sets it apart from other typing systems because the Enneagram says, hey, let's not just look at your strengths. Let's look at your weakness and learn how can you manage this weakness instead of letting it manage you. And then the last thing in the core 4 that the Enneagram looks at is the core longing, which is the message that your heart needs to hear. These are all very personal things. You can't look at somebody and know their core fear, core desire, core weakness, and core longing. You can guess because oftentimes like the more into the Enneagram you get, the more you can maybe guess what their type, but I don't recommend telling people what you think their type is because that totally messes with their journey. For example, I thought my dad was a 3, like immediately. Once I figured out I was a 3, I was like, oh, my dad's a 3. So I went, and I just learned about the Enneagram. So I went up to him and I was like, Dad, you're a 3, just like me. And then he like read about the 3 and he's like, well, I don't want to be that, because when you read about your own type, it should be really cringy. You should feel like, that's uncomfortable. So he ended up typing as a 6. And then years later, we find out he's a 3. But I think he was very influenced by me marching around being like, you're a 3, you're a 3. So I totally like messed up his journey. I've learned since then. I'm passing that on to you. Please don't do that to other people. Oh, Jenny says a 7 introduced me to the Enneagram. Yes. Okay, I love that. Yeah, not to say that 7s are not involved in the Enneagram. They definitely are. I just find that they are, of the numbers, they're the least likely to engage in Enneagram content online. So let's see. Joyce says, I often think about engaging as a 5, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Yeah. 5s oftentimes are way more interested in observing rather than participating. So they'll spend so much time prepping, so much time observing, that they'll forget to actually do the thing. Cutthroat Beast asks, do growth and stress paths apply to other numbers besides your core type, like wing and tri-type? I think I'm a little confused by that question. Unless you're asking if there's growth and stress paths in wings, in which case that's not a thing. The growth and stress paths are just with the numbers you're connected to across the circle. Kathy says she doesn't know her wing and she's a 3. Well, you definitely know your wings. You're a 2, either a 2 or a 4, but let's talk about the 3 wings, because that can be super helpful. So if you're a 3 wing 4, you're going to be a driven individual. You're going to have new ideas, new project in the works. You're going to tend to be more introverted, find satisfaction in personal success. You may be more imaginative. So instead of like putting yourself out there like you're the star of the show, you're more working behind the scenes, but you still want that acceptance. I'm going to play a quick video of what the 3 wing 4 might look like, and then we'll talk about 3 wing 2.
How many times do I have to tell you, now is not the time? No, that's what I've been saying this entire time. We got to bring it up at the board meeting. Okay, now I have a minute. I'm sorry about that. Busy day. Some of my titles are the expert or the professional. My friends would describe me as ambitious, dedicated, and private. It's incredibly important to me that I succeed at what I put my mind to. Failure is not an option for me. This attitude is great for my career because I worked really hard, but it kind of sucks too because I'm always stressed out. And I feel like my worth is directly tied to how productive I can be throughout the day. I know, my therapist tells me it's unhealthy, but it's just who I am.
So yes, that is what an Enneagram 3 wing 4 could look like. And Enneagram, hang on one second. Let me go to 3. Sorry, guys. Okay, 3 wing 2. They are socially savvy people. They're extremely interpersonal. Their nickname is like the star, right? So these people, they want to be the center of the stage. They tend to be really popular, have a lot of friends. They really care about what other people think about them. So let me play a little video that shows a little bit of what the type 3 might struggle with on a daily basis.
I always make sure to put an outfit and makeup on in the mornings, even if I'm not going anywhere. It's so important to make a good impression, even if it's just the Amazon delivery guy. Some people call me the star or the enchanter, and I agree. I am pretty mesmerizing. It might be my admirable work ethic or the ease with which I make friends. It might also be how pretty I am. Now, I know how bad that sounds, but believe me, I am more aware of how I'm perceived than anybody. It's just that I have to look good in all aspects, otherwise I'm gonna fail. If I fail, it's going to be so hard for people to love me. And I can't live like that.
So that's what a 3 wing 2 might look like. And again, if you're a 3, you lean on both your 4 wing and your 2 wing to get you through the day. You have access to the strengths and weaknesses of both of those types, but most people, myself included, lean more heavily on one than the other. Roxy asks, is Katara from Atla a 1 wing 2? It's so funny you asked this because I'm rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender right now. And the more I watch it, the more I'm like, yeah, she's definitely a 1. I did a whole YouTube video on Avatar The Last Airbender. If you can find it, you could drop it in the chat. But I did all the Enneagram types of the main characters of Avatar, and it's one of my favorite videos because that's my all-time favorite show. Avi says, I'm an INFP. I'm an INFJ, HSP, type 4. So yes, highly empathetic person with all of those going on, which leads to intuitive emotional overload. Steer clear of sad movies, horror movies, since they can stay with me for days. It's really important, especially when you're a highly sensitive person, to be really conscious of what you're putting into your system. What are you feeding your brain? What are you telling, yourself to think about, because you're so sensitive? Like I'm also quite empathetic and sensitive. And like, if there's a shooting or something horrible happening, like I can't dive into it that much because it'll just derail me for the rest of the week, honestly. Not that I'm trying to be ignorant, but it hurts so much that like it's just not good for me to like immerse myself in horrible stories on Twitter and stuff like that, or watching movies that, can stay with you for days. Yeah. Leslie thinks she's a 5. I became an Enneagram coach through Beth McCord of Your Enneagram Coach. I would love to get more certifications. I've been looking into it. Not something that is on the horizon right now, but it's something that I would love to do in the course of my life. I think Beatrice Chestnut is awesome. I love her books. So yeah, that would be cool. I would really like to get some more certifications, learn from different people. I enjoy the way that different teachers see the world through different lenses, see the Enneagram through different lenses. So I've had Beth McCord's lens. I've had, different books I've read, but I'd love to get some more certifications for sure. Sapphire asks, do adjacent types who share a wing look similar? For example, I'm a type 4 who mostly leans on my 5 wing. So would a 5 wing 4 show up the same? This is a great question. 5 wing 4s and 4 wing 5s are often mistyped. And that's because you have this peculiar ability to balance both your left brain and your right brain. You use creativity and logic and reason in a similar way. And that's why it all goes back to the core motivations. Why are you doing the things that you do? A 5's core fear is to be incompetent, to not have knowledge, right? And a 4's core fear is to be insignificant, to not have an identity, to die without having had an impact on the world. Those are two very different things. A 5's worst fear is to be put into a situation and not know what to do. A 4's worst fear is to be put into a situation and everyone's wearing the same outfit. That is not their worst fear, but it's walking into a room and being not special at all. It's having a dead end job where, it doesn't really matter who's doing the job. You just need to, data entry. It's not having a significant identity. Whereas the 5 views the world as very intrusive. So they want to protect their inner resources, and they want to observe, learn as much as they can before they jump in and participate in things. 5s and 4s are also in the withdrawn stance. So they can look similar when they don't get things that they want. They can back off. If they get really stressed out, they can withdraw, self-isolate. So oftentimes, yes, 5 wing 4s, 4 wing 5s do get mistyped. So I would look at the core motivations. Why do you do the things that you do? Because a 5's core motivations and a 4's core motivations are very different. You're welcome, Kathy. Rex thinks Katara is a ESFJ, 1 wing 2. We're actually learning way more about Myers-Briggs right now. I'm reading the Gifts Differing book, and it's been fascinating. Definitely don't understand it like I understand the Enneagram, so still learning, but it's been really fun. Yeah, more highly sensitive people in here. Stay away from violent movies and really bad news, honestly, unless it you directly need to know. I feel like advice for a 5 wing 6 trying to find my purpose. It's a big question. I don't know if I'm the best person to offer advice on how to find your purpose. If only to follow, what things do you enjoy doing? What is life giving to you? How do you want to spend your days? But yes, that's something you could talk to a wiser person than I. I'm still figuring things out. Definitely considered a 4-wing 5 as a possible type. Can 6-wing 5 and 5-wing 6 get mistyped? Yeah, they share similar characteristics. They both approach things through mental analysis. They both feel fear in certain ways. Like five doesn't want to be viewed as incompetent. They're fearful of that. 6s don't want to have like their security rocked. They want to feel like they're on a solid foundation. So I feel like they also have similarities, and I can go through 5-wings and 6-wings if you guys want. And again, on my website, I have the training, this wings training and guidebook. So it goes over all the wings. It has like a little guidebook you can go through, and it's a digital download. So it'll go right to your email, and then you can use it whenever. I know you watched Bridgerton and loved it. Yes, I have seen Queen Charlotte. Haven't thought about typing it, but I cried that whole show. It was so good. I'd have to think about it. I honestly didn't even cross my mind to type them while I was watching. I was just enjoying having a new Bridgerton story out, and the costumes and the acting in that show is so freaking good. Treybird says, I'm a 5-wing 4, and there's no doubt I'm a 5, but I heavily relate to 4. The only thing that doesn't represent me is their passion. Yeah, and your wing doesn't mean that you are your 5 and you have all of the traits of a 4. Like I said, wings are a sprinkling, a flavoring of your personality. It's like you're cooking and you're adding salt and pepper, you're adding spice to the overall version of your personality. So I'm going to go ahead and show a video of what the 5-wing 4 looks like, because I think that might be helpful as we're talking about that. And then I'll also go through 4-wing 5. So this is an example of what the 5-wing 4 could look like.
Thank you for coming to my little corner. I come here to drink tea and think about the world. Isn't it wild that we're all just trillions of cells coming together in this mesh to make a thinking, breathing, creating human being? Wow. 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 As an Enneagram 5-wing 4, some people call me the iconoclast and others call me the philosopher. Although, I don't put myself at the level of Aristotle or Plato or anything like that. I know what you're thinking. Wow, your main type and your wing are both in the withdrawn stance. How do you do that? The emotions come in. I'm just like, no, leave me alone. Are we done filming? Because I have a still life and a new paintbrush calling my name, and can you turn it off?
So 5-wing 4, this type is known as the iconoclast. They're lone rangers. They value being self-taught, and they also have that like superhuman ability, like I was saying, to balance their right brains and their left brains, which 4-wing 5s can as well. And then, like I said, 4s and 5s are both in the withdrawn stance, so they can struggle with feeling misunderstood, and when things get hard, they self-isolate. Whenever I say self-isolate or withdraw, I picture a bedroom, like going into the bedroom, shutting the door, and like not coming out. That is quite similar to, or that's quite common for 5s and 4s. Let me show you what the 4-wing 5 might look like and how that differs from a 5-wing 4.
Some qualities that I admire about myself are my creativity, my originality, and my ability to think deeply about the world. It could be blue, it could be a violet sky. I've heard someone call me the bohemian or the free spirit, but I don't really like labels. I refrain from calling myself anything. Sometimes my name doesn't even feel like it fits who I am. Walk out the door. I'm just putting together my mom's birthday present. I went on a nature walk and I picked all of her favorite flowers like that, and now I'm gonna arrange them in a frame in a pleasingly aesthetic Look at that one. My mom says I always do the most thoughtful birthday gifts, and I would have to agree. You might.
So 4-wing 5s, they're known as the bohemian, and they tend to be more introverted than, say, 4-wing 3s. They look a lot like 5-wing 4s. You can find that to be a common mistyping. They're intense creators. They use their self-expression to explore the world. They're really intellectual. They lean on that 5 ability, to observe the world in a really like intellectual way. Like 5-wing 4s, they also withdraw, they self-isolate, and they have that superhuman ability to balance their right brain and their left brain. The biggest difference to know if you're a 5-wing 4 or a 4-wing 5 is looking at your core motivations, which is the most important part of the Enneagram. I always say, like, wings, don't even worry about wings if you haven't yet figured out your main type, because it really doesn't matter unless you have figured out these things, which is your core fear, your core weakness, your core desire. Sorry, I got all messed up because I was clicking things. Core fear, core desire, core weakness, and core longing. When you figure those things out, then you can worry about wings, but you want to figure these out before you worry about what are your wings. So when people are always like, I don't know if I'm a 5-wing 4 or 4-wing 5, forget the wings. Let's throw them out. They really don't matter at that point. The most important part is finding, why do you do the things that you do? What are your core motivations? Once you know your main type, then you can start benefiting from the other ways that types differentiate, the ways that different types look different. Because, things like where you are in health, your wings, your subtypes, all of those things help color what your main type looks like. But if you don't know your main type, why bother with all the other stuff? Because you got to like hone in on that main type. Just going through. Oh, Lady Danbury is definitely an 8. I did type her in my Bridgerton, video. I did a Bridgerton video a few years ago when the first season came out, and I was like, this is the best show I've ever seen. But yeah, Lady Danbury is definitely an 8. Rex asks, how to tell the difference between a type 9 and type 6. Both types can be similar, especially with 9s going to 6 in stress. And this goes back to what we were just saying, core motivations. Why do you do the things that you do? So 6s, their core fear is losing support and stability, whether that be financial, emotional, or relational. They need to lean on things, even if it means that they might not be happy. If they feel like they're supported, then they're going to stick with things longer because they're afraid of losing that support. Their core desire is to have security, to have guidance, to have the earth be like stable underneath them. And their core weakness is anxiety, which is basically constantly worrying about past, present, future, looking at worst case scenarios. And that comes from a place of fear, right? The fear of fear itself. I don't want to feel that. So I'm going to come up with a plan B, C, D, E, F. I'm going to have all of these contingency plans. And then the core longing of an Enneagram 6 is all will be well. It's like that proverb, all will be well, and all will be well, and all will be well. Then, so if that's how you know if you're an Enneagram 6, so looking at why you do the things that you do, are you going to work with a bunch of contingency plans for this big project you're working on because you're afraid of losing support, because you're afraid of things failing, because you're like, okay, well, if this project fails, I might get fired because the company's not doing well, blah, 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 blah. But a 9, for example, their core fear is being in conflict, losing connection with other people, being ignored. So if they're going into work and there's this big project going on and they're afraid it's going to fail, they don't want to necessarily create conflict with other people. If it's someone else's like brainchild, someone else's baby, they're going to be like, okay, what are ways I can mediate and be a diplomat and kind of very, subtly put in what I think should happen without causing any conflict or upsetting any feelings. Whereas sixes are going to rush into that, like, you guys, we need a plan B, like we need a plan C. This is going to fail. This is like, I'm worried about this. It's not that nines won't see what needs to be done or not also have those same feelings as a six, but they're going to approach it differently. Because nines overall, their biggest desire is having inner stability and peace of mind. They want that inner peace. That is the most important thing to them. So that's how I would recommend figuring out the differentiation between the types. Four isn't generally an anxiety type, but I have it. Is that an uncommon feature in fours? When it comes, it's hard because anxiety is like a mental illness, and it is also used as, one of the core weaknesses of the nine types. So I think anxiety, the mental illness, is a bit different than anxiety in the Enneagram. I think anyone can struggle with anxiety and depression no matter what type you are. But the anxiety of a six, which is their core weakness, is more of, it is less of like a mental health thing and more of a way that they approach the world. They approach the world with worry. And it doesn't mean that if you're a four, you don't have anxiety just because it's not your main weakness. I'm a three. I have a lot of anxiety. Oh, yeah. I've seen Firefly. Ooh, that would be cool. It's just not super popular. I feel like no one's watched it, but I love Joss Whedon and all of those, like Dr. Horrible sing-along blog, Firefly. I love all that, like that fun sci-fi stuff. Wait, I was trying to get this one. Yeah, I don't know if there are commonalities. My dog is barking. He hears the sirens far away. Hi, buddy. You okay? Yeah, all Enneagram types can have mental health issues. That's not relegated to one type or the other. There might be studies on, what's going on with each. Probably therapists see a lot more. If they use the Enneagram in their practice, they'll see a lot of commonalities. I'm not qualified to speak on that, so I'm not going to. Rusty Home says, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the difference between fives and sixes are fives think of how to break out of the box they're in. A six tries to find all the possible cracks in their wall that they built. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I've never heard it described that way. But yeah, I like that, the imagery of that. I really like that. Ones and fives have a lot of things in common because they're both very logical. Yes, I agree with that. The Enneagram isn't popular because too many people will talk about it and wouldn't be satisfying when things are popular. Yeah, and fours wouldn't want to be part of it anymore if it was that popular. Yeah, I have my puppy here, but he's on his little bed, guarding the door. So I'm just gonna let him. I've already picked him up and brought him into the camera twice, and I think he's done. He doesn't want to be there anymore. Any other questions? And maybe two more questions, and then I'm gonna call it a day. My introverted self can only go live for so long before I burn out. Two more questions before the end of the day. Wings, Enneagram stuff, questions about typing fictional characters, anything you would want to bring to know, just let me know. Pop it in the chat. We'll chat about it. Oh, you're welcome, Avi. That was one of my absolute favorite things to make. The pockets of peace for each type. I love those. That's on my online shop. And then I also just have it on my Instagram if you want to see, like, what are things that might bring you peace as your Enneagram type. Thanks, Elle. That's very sweet. I don't know everything, FYI. There's a lot of things I don't know. Are there any shows you'd like to compare the Enneagram types of? Well, I'm obsessed with The Last of Us, so I did some shorts on that, like reels and stuff. But I mean, I would love to like go do a deep dive on The Last of Us and really like, I don't know. I'm like just rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender. I would like 100% make another follow-up video to that. Cutthroat Beast asks, can you share desires and fears from your wing too? You can't, I mean, I feel like we can all relate to the fears and desires of the other types. Just because I'm a type 3 and I desire to have success and be seen as worthy doesn't mean that I also, don't want to feel in control like an 8 or to feel peaceful like a 9. It just means that my overriding desire is to be successful. So I don't think you share the core motivations in terms of like if you have a wing, their core motivation is also your core motivation. You only have like one core fear, one core desire, etc. So again, think of wings more like a flavoring, like a leaning, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or Pisa, and not necessarily like you are both a 5 and a 4. If you're a 5 wing 4, you're a 5 who leans on some of the aspects of a 4. Any tips to access your alternate wing if you lean heavily on the other? Yeah, I recommend doing some journaling. I actually have some questions here that I would recommend. I'm just going to add it here. Ask, which wing do you find yourself relying on more? Obviously, you have a better idea of that. How have you seen your wing influence your main type? Really like get a journal, write it out. I want like specific examples. How does it impact your relationships, your work, your hobbies, your daily life? I want to hear about that. You not that you're sending it to me, but write it down. Really think about it. And then I want you to think about your secondary wing. How does that influence your main Enneagram type? And then what would it look like for your wings to be equally balanced, right? Like what can you do to lessen that divide between, leaning on one wing than the other? It's like a bird. Can't fly with just one wing. You're going to be like lopsided and hobbling all over. You won't be able to fly. So finding ways that you can lean into both your wings is really helpful. My example for that is as a 3, I'm a 3 wing 4 primarily. So I'm like more introverted. I like to quietly succeed, like a little bit more like inward focused. And when I rely more on my 2 wing, I'm focusing more on community, focusing more on serving other people. And that is incredibly helpful for me to be more balanced because it's less all about me, and it's more community focused. So it's an example of that. Awesome. I think that was our ending 2 questions. Thank you for being here. Excited to chat with you guys. If you could like the video and comment on it, that would be really helpful. And I will see you guys next week. Next week's video is going to be if extroverts were treated like introverts, and I'm really excited to post it. Thanks for being here, guys. Have a lovely weekend. Get some rest and do fun things.